Gaining phase week 17, so this week's weekly average weight is 76.55 kilos, so that's a gain from last week of 0.31 kilos. This week's weekly average steps is 11,231. Training adherence 100%. There's been no sleep, stress, hunger or fatigue issues this week. Overall, it's been a good week. I've managed to meet all my training progressions. No changes needed to the diet this week, and now I'm going to run you through my training overview. Now then, this week I thought I'd run through my training and what I'm doing with it at the moment, because some of you will know me personally will know that I've recently moved again from training in CrossFit to going back to more like bodybuilding, gym style training. And probably one of the reasons why I've chosen to do that is simply because I have been doing my gaining phase now for 16 weeks or 17 weeks. So 4 months in, and when I started move back into the bodybuilding, hypertrophy style training. Firstly, because that's what I first ever got into and enjoyed. But secondly, when you are doing a gaining phase or when you are doing a bulk, it is something that you do need to control. Like, training is always going to be the main stimulus for you building muscle mass. Now, you certainly can build muscle doing CrossFit, but obviously there's a reason why, bodybuilders, or kind of why the training is always a bit more higher reps and with probably more isolation exercises rather than compound movements, and doing less metcons as well. So I thought I'd run through my training today, and simply because as well, obviously because it's something I've moved back to recently, and again, this is how I program for all my clients. I'm just going to give a bit of an overview and not the specifics too much into my programming and the overview of why and what I do, but just because I see there's a lot of mistakes go wrong with people's training. And when I'm usually looking at training programs where I'm seeing people online, and I think one of the big problems I see is that one of the first things people often do is they'll just put a load of exercises on a sheet and put 3 by 10, so 3 sets of 10. And they'll have absolutely no intention of what they're trying to get out of those workouts. Like, what I'm showing you here is just a snippet of the small things I would do before I even put an exercise on a sheet. Like, exercise selection should pretty much be one of the last things you decide on when creating a training program, unless it's obviously for a sport specific reason or whatever it is. I still even think in those circumstances that exercise selection probably is one of the last things really you should do, especially when you're planning out a long-term program. So I thought I'd run through mine. I won't spend too long on this because, again, the educational style videos, they're a separate one to what my check-ins are, but I thought this could be good for me to run through what my training looks like, and then obviously if people do have any more questions on this stuff, I can make a video going into it more detail, maybe on the education side of things. So first thing to start with is my training age at intermediate, which might come as a bit of a surprise to some of you listening to this, but I probably think there's very few people who actually get into the advanced training age, if I'm honest with you. Advanced training age, I would say, is people who are really getting to close towards their genetic potential in terms of strength, and in terms of obviously hypertrophy, the amount of muscle mass they build or can build as well. And if we look at how we're making progressions, I'm still able to go into the gym every week at the moment and make progressions on a weekly basis. And that's because of the things of how I've set my training up, which is another thing that I see people go wrong at, is where they're already plateauing very early on in the training careers, and it's probably because they've not taken the time to do some things properly, which is what I'm going to come on to a little bit as I get further down. So training age is intermediate. At the moment, I don't have any performance related goals, but that probably will change in the near future. I've still not hit a 200 kilo deadlift before. The heaviest I've done was when I did my powerlifting meet. So in my powerlifting meet, I weighed in at 74 kilograms and I got on the squat 157.5. I failed at 162.5. The bench press I did 120 kilos, and deadlift I got 195, but it went up pretty good. I really should have gone for 200. I'm kick myself looking back at it now, but it is what it is. It gives me another training focus to go on, but that is something I definitely want to tick off and say that I've achieved. So again, while you can mix deadlifting and strength and hypertrophy work in this style of training, for the moment, just because I'm doing the gaining phase and I'm just really loving training again, I'm in a really good groove and rhythm with everything at the moment. Kind of my main focus is just hypertrophy and building muscle mass. As vain as that might sound, that is kind of my main goal at the moment. So goals, obviously hypertrophy is the main one, and then strength is the secondary one. Areas so that could be kind of like muscles to develop. There's none really, although some people laugh who are listening to this will laugh now. Probably calves are a bit of an area I would like to bring up, but again, that's something I'm going to come on to later on. And then availability, I've put for 4 sessions per week. I probably could do 5 per week if I'm honest with you, but I don't need to at the moment. And this is one of the other things as well where I see a lot of people go wrong, is that I probably could if I wanted to get into the gym 5 times per week, but it might mean a case of I do that for 2 weeks and then the 3rd week I miss a session, the 4th week it might mean I miss one here and there, whereas I know if I'm doing 4 every week I should be able to make 4 sessions. And it's more important, like the most fundamental thing out of all this is your consistency. So imagine we've got like a pyramid or a house, whatever, the foundations of that is consistency. It's something that you all manage to do every single week. And again, this is where I see people go so wrong. If you're not making and completing your program every week or however many days you set it over, then you're not ticking the main thing. You could have the best program in the world and say you're programmed for 4 times a week and you're getting to the gym twice a week, or you're getting to the gym once a week consistently, then you're just never going to make any progress. You're going to go backwards, if I'm honest with you. So I would always say as a minimum, you would want to be getting into the gym at least 3 times per week as a minimum. But obviously the more you can get in, the better to a certain extent, just because the sessions aren't longer. But so long as you're hitting your volume over the week, it doesn't really matter whether you do it in 3 sessions or 6 sessions. But obviously, you know, as your training age starts to increase and we have to start increasing the volume, then obviously, you know, those sessions will be going on for a long time, and you've got to consider fatigue as well in those. Okay, so macro cycle. So a lot of programs people settle with 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever it is. And again, this is something that people don't need to do. Like for me, I've gone with ongoing, and this is obviously going to be broken up into mesocycles, and I won't go into the specific mesocycles now. But the macro cycle is kind of the big overarching view, because a lot of people just hop from program to program and don't give it enough chance and don't know how to do the progressions correctly. So for me, macro cycle is just going to be ongoing, probably until I finish this gaining phase, or until I really start to plateau on this program, which I've not done now for, you know, the past 16, 17 weeks. Frequency, so 4 times per week, we've already been through that. Sets, okay, so for most exercises, for most muscle groups, I'm going to be doing 13 to 15 sets per muscle group over a weekly basis, and that is either going to be 3 or 4 times per week. I'm currently running 4 full body training sessions. So there's some muscles, like for instance biceps and triceps, like I think I've, you know, got reasonably good arms at the moment, so there's not as much volume allocated to those. That's something that I've pulled back on a little bit. But then calves are something like I've upped a little bit, because I understand that my calves could do with a little bit more work, and I also want to bring on my quads and hamstrings, so I've put a little bit more volume there and reduced in other areas a little bit. But most things are in that 13 to 15 sets, but there is some cases where it's not there. Intensity. Okay, so for the majority of my exercises, because my main goal is hypertrophy at the moment and not strength, I've got 53 sets which are in the 6 to 12 rep range. And then the other rep ranges, so from 1 to 6 or 12 up to 20, there's nothing over 20, is 40%. So when we take those two numbers of sets together, we get 90 altogether. So we can see 60% of my work is in the 6 to 12, and then 40% of it is in the other. Again, intensity is a really important role in terms of hypertrophy as well. So that's why it's important that we consider how many of the sets are actually within those rep ranges as well. And again, that's a massively overlooked part of a lot of people's training programs. Like if my goal then became more strength, so when I go into more, you know, maybe chasing the 200 kilo deadlift again, then we'll probably see the others start to climb a little bit higher, and we'll get that balance. But usually we want to be seeing somewhere around, I'd say 2/3 to 3/4 of the bulk of the sets in that 6 to 12 range if our goal is hypertrophy. Obviously if it's strength, then we'd probably be looking more towards that 1 to 6 rep range. Split, I've already gone through that, the 4 full body sessions which I'm doing, which to be honest with you, I'm absolutely loving. I've done push, pull, upper, lower, you know, any kind of body part splits, anything you can think of in the past, but the 4 full body sessions, I'm just loving at the moment. I feel as though it doesn't give me too much fatigue or soreness in one muscle group that affects me for like following days. Like I might be a little bit sore after each session. And again, that's something that I should actually probably bring up, is that people focus and feel as though if they're sore that they've had a good workout. Soreness is not the sign of a good workout. Okay, soreness is not the sign of a bad workout either. But don't judge the quality of your workout on soreness. Like, I barely get sore from my sessions now. I'll be like a little bit sore and can feel it a little bit, but not to the point where I'm struggling to walk up and down stairs, or, you know, I'm really, you know, can feel it in certain areas. Okay, progression's really, really important, or progressive overload as some people like to call it. So I've kind of dialed it in, and I've got my main two areas that I'm wanting to progress along, and this is going to be a good indicator for, firstly, that I'm getting stronger, and secondly, that I'm building muscle mass as well. So for my compound lifts, I'm doing something called linear load progressions, which is that I'm looking to increase the weight on a weekly basis on these movements. And then I'm doing some double progression as well, which means when you'll see when you've got a rep range of, let's say we've got, I don't know, an exercise that says 3 sets of 8 to 12. What we want to be looking to do is try and increase the reps on a weekly basis. So that might be a case of week 1, I go in on an exercise and get, I don't know, 12, 11, 10. The following week, it might be a case of I hit 12, 11, 11. The following week after that, it might be 12, 12, 12. And we're just trying to increase that reps by at least a minimum of 1 reps on a weekly basis. And then when we start to not do that 2 weeks in a row, that's where we can start to look at other progressions we might need to bring in, or whether we need to swap the exercise, or whether we need to make a change to the movement as well, adding a pause in there, an isometric hold. Or there's lots and lots of different variations and other ways of you can apply a progressive overload. But for now, my main progressions that I'm going to be going for is linear load increases and double progression for my compound lifts. And for my isolation exercises, it will also be double progressions as well. Notes, I just wanted to add some stuff on there. So I am playing around with long length partials now over the last year, 2 years. Long length partials, there's been lots and lots of good research come out about them. A long length partial is essentially where you're in the deepest stretch of an exercise, and you're kind of performing the rep in that position. So with calves in particular, there was a comparison of where they did like standing calf raises using long length partials, and where it was like going through a full range of motion, and kind of both exercises, hypertrophy anyway, showed similar results. So this is why I'm just playing around with them a little bit with the long length partials. I think with calves in particular, like that's a really, really good area to do them on, especially after seeing that paper. So that's an area I'm playing around with them at the moment, and I might bring them into other exercises as well. I know in particular like side raises is where a movement a lot of people tend to apply the long length partials, but for now I'm just doing it with calves. When I start to so my mesocycles at the moment are running for 6 weeks. So typically for clients, I'll program anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. And then when I get to the end of those 4 and 6 weeks, anything that I'm not progressing on anymore, that's where I'll change out. And what I'll probably look to do is, so like I've earmarked as like one of my first progressions, probably will be bringing in something called wave loading, where for instance, over a 6-week block, it might be week 1 I'm doing let's say 6 reps, then week 2 it might go 5 reps, 4 reps, and so on all the way down. It might be start at 8, whatever it is. It depends on the movement, or obviously what my goals are. But and then when I do the following block, the idea is that I would be going 2.5 or 5 kilos heavier than the previous block. So that's probably one of the first things I'll bring in when I do start to hit a bit of a plateau. And then once all this is done, and again, there's a lot more that goes into this in terms of if there's exercises I struggle with technique, if there's specific muscle groups that, you know, I do want to develop, although I've gone through that a little bit. But there's quite a bit that goes into this, and then, and only then, would I actually start looking at the exercises that I'm going to put in. So I just wanted to show you that today, especially for the people who write their own training programs or who download training programs without knowing a lot of this information. Kind of exercise selection should be one of the last things you do. I've really, really brushed through this and gone through quite quickly a lot of this stuff today, because the check-in videos I want to keep a little bit short, and maybe in the future I'll make a longer educational one about programming and stuff. But yeah, for now, I thought it'd be good to just show what my training looks like at the moment. And again, if anyone's got any questions, guys, please leave them in the comments box, follow me on Instagram, shoot me a message, and I'm more than happy to answer them for you.